My name is Maria Lopez. I was born in the Canary Islands. I grew up in London. I left London when I was 21. I've been here for over 34 years. This November I'll be 56. I live here in New York and I work in the architectural business. What is ayahuasca? Ayahuasca is a tea. It's a combination of two plants. One is a vine and the other is the plant called the chacruna plant. They're boiled together and they're boiled for many, many hours, and eventually you get this kind of sludge on the bottom. That's what you get in a shot of ayahuasca. The chacruna plant has high levels of DMT. DMT is a hallucinogenic and also a neurotransmitter that is being produced by the pineal gland in most human beings. Early coding. The Jesuits say, if you give me a child from 0 to 6, I'll give you a Jesuit for life, which they obviously understood that we're coded up very early on. So all the stuff that happens to us between 0 and 6 actually codes reality. Doctors have proven that children don't actually recognize themselves in a mirror until about 16 months, which is essentially when consciousness and the ego is really created. So it's almost like a switch goes off and suddenly you're in Act 2, Scene 3, and you're in this environment with these two people. The choice is very clear. I mean, you come with a divine handbook. All the parent needs to do is to nurture that. If that doesn't happen, and for the most part it doesn't, and adults basically pour their unfinished business on children, children then create an armor. They basically build a false self. And this false self is built because it needs to survive that treacherous journey from childhood to adulthood. The only problem is that all these compensations that we create are never, ever gotten rid of. We just repeat the same pattern over and over and over. If you're lucky, the divine handbook is seen and it's nurtured and the plant grows as it must. What ayahuasca does is it takes a sledgehammer to that ego that you've built and really shows you your true self. Therapy is like the youngest child as far as that journey towards finding out who you really are. We all have issues growing up, it's inevitable. My own issues were concerning a very angry, tyrannical father and a very infantile, submissive mother. When I came to the States, somebody said to me, look, Maria, you really ought to go into therapy. I didn't realize I needed it. I thought this was just the way the world was, right? And I did it for 10 years. What I realized that it really didn't help very much, because in therapy there are two egos trying to find out about each other. You can't really get underneath there. You can scratch the surface, but that's it. Also, an issue is that you're basically repeating the story over and over and over. So you're really recoding what's already coded up. The idea is you really want to dismantle the motherboard completely. And the ego is enormously powerful because it had to survive such a treacherous journey in this very helpless, vulnerable place in childhood. So it's not going to give it up that easily. It's not really, for me, the most powerful tool if you're on the spiritual path. As I say, it's the youngest child in the whole toolbox of that journey. Meditation, the elder brother. I had it all. I had the homes, the cars, the child, the husband, the whole thing. The American dream. And then the universe took a very large sledgehammer and basically broke the whole thing up. It was like being on the Titanic, you know, when you think it's all brilliant and you're drinking wine and you're having such a great time, and suddenly the whole thing sinks. Mine wasn't so immediate. It took about 5 years for the whole thing to basically completely crash. Somebody gave me a book on meditation, and meditation is brilliant. Why? Because it sets up a platform for viewing the mind. And once you see it, you realize that it's built like a bird's nest of 10 trillion things. And every thought, if you look at it, can be traced back to a particular moment in childhood, a particular gesture, emotion, a feeling, a belief. So it's almost like you're living with this kind of bomb that you've created that you have to be very careful to dismantle, because each piece of it is kind of glued together with these very powerful emotions of fear and anxiety and the potential of oblivion. So meditation is an incredible muscle to build. So it's a very powerful tool, and it certainly was on my journey. Ayahuasca, the mother, or as we say, the last stop. I didn't know anything about ayahuasca. I'd actually found out about it through some internet search or something. And then I was in Costa Rica surfing, and this very practical, sensible German woman, had said that she'd actually done ayahuasca. And she'd done it in a very kind of sanitized setting in Brazil. But what was really amazing to me was that I didn't want to do it in some sanitized setting. I really wanted to do it in the birthplace of ayahuasca. So it took me for almost 2.5 years to find the best place to do it. It's very scary, it's very dangerous. It basically blows up the vault of your subconscious. So you want to do it in a place that's really safe, very loving. And I found an amazing place. It's called Temple of the Way of Light, where they have both the ayahuasca ceremony and they have a kind of post-integration therapeutic Western kind of distillation of what's going on in the ceremonies. I was very fortunate. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about people dying and about, you know, people being abused because you're in a very vulnerable position. So you have to be very careful about choosing the place you go to. So the first night there, I had a dream. And in that dream, I was walking with my cousin in the Canaries, who I adore. And somebody pulled me aside and said, Maria, you're going to die February 2017. So just so I let you know, thank you very much. Ceremony 1, in the morning you've had all these amazing juices that they've put together, they've created out of the plants, they give it according to the needs that you have, they kind of like look at you and see what you need. And you have lunch, and anyway, so at 6:30 you do kind of meditation, yoga, and at 7:30 the ceremony begins. Now, the ceremony takes place in a very large round hut. There are 22 like mattresses. There's a little bucket to puke in. There is toilet paper so you can clean yourself off. You bring your blanket and your pillow. Now this is pitch black. The jungle is like full orchestra blare. There's no electricity here. There are no lights. There's just candles. And then at 7:30, the Shipibo Indians walk into the Maloka. They sit down, they take the ayahuasca, and then one by one, everybody's called up. And it's sort of ritualized. You go up, the two people who are from the Temple of the Way of Light are sitting there. The Shipibo Indian is behind them, and they say, what do you want, a small glass, a medium glass? And I'm like, I want a small, the regular glass, thank you, very little. It's a shot about this big. And they said to me, how do you feel? I said, fucking terrified. They said, don't worry. So I went back, and about 30 minutes in, they started singing. So there's incredible melodic chanting going on. It's like this ancestral music, like you've heard it somewhere in a billion years. I completely locked into this music, like I was home. I understood it. I was like a little bird. I was literally waiting for them, because they would come around and sing to each person individually and then sing as a group depending on what was going on with each person. And then the Shipibo came and sat in front of me, and she started to sing, and then I just puked and puked. And after I puked, which is incredible release, it basically releases and detoxifies the blockages in your system, I started to weep, and I was crying like, Mom, Mom, like I was home. And I was this little girl. The whole evening was like that, and then I was smiling. I just was so happy, like I came back home. It wears off after about 3 or 4 hours, or 4 or 5 hours, depends. And then I went back to my hut at 2 in the morning, and this is where it gets really fun. I lay down on my bed at 2 in the morning to go to sleep, and I hear this moaning. It's ah, ah, and it's just, and the jungle is in full swing. There are fishes flying out of the water next to me, next to the pond, and this moaning spirit just moving around my room. I asked the next day what that was, and they said, Maria, you brought him with you. Ceremony 2. What I didn't mention beforehand was that about the 15th year of meditation, and that was, I was doing it every day for about an hour, 45 minutes. I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night I had what can only be described as like, they call it Kundalini, but just massive amounts of energy just like pouring through my system. Like I felt like I was being reprogrammed. It was unbelievable. But it only came up to my throat, and I thought I was dying. I thought, that's it, I'm dead. That next day, I jump on the 6 train here in New York, and there's this woman selling these wooden flowers on the train. And I don't know why, I started shooting her. I sort of empathized with the situation. And this guy jumps on, he's like an angel, and just gives her $150 and says, give out the flowers and take the money. There was this huge ecstasy in this woman. And that same day, the whole day was this like I was in some other dimension. I would speak to somebody at lunch and talk about something, go, oh, and I'd turn around and there they were. That very evening, I then had this dream, and I got out of a taxi and I had to go home, back to my house in London. The whole house in London was white, but in the attic was this very dark energy. And I knew I had to go face it, but I was so scared. So I sent my cousin up to face it, and she was devoured by the energy. Now I say this because the second ceremony, I wanted to basically get rid of that dark energy. And that's why I asked the mother, I said, please get rid of this dark energy. The whole ceremony, when it started, after about 30 minutes, my whole face was paralyzed. I could not move my face. And I felt it pumping up. The spirit, the mother ayahuasca, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, went up and up and up, and then started like moving my face around in all these different parts, my jaw, in my head, through my brain. And then it came down and started literally moving things around in my heart. It was like cleansing and just moving. I could just feel it all moving around my heart. It was unbelievable. It felt after the ceremony like I'd been given a new heart, like I'd completely been cleaned up. Now, I had asked Mother Ayahuasca for healing to a dark energy. But again, the mother does not give you what you want, it gives you what you need. But that cleansing was definitely part of cleansing whatever that was there that needed to be removed. So it was an incredible ceremony. Ceremony 1, I felt like I'd come home, like she brought me home. Ceremony 2 was like, okay, now I'm going to fix up what's broken. It's like I had this broken heart, and she completely put it back together. Ceremony 3, I thought, okay, I've dealt with who I am. I've dealt with this dark energy. Now I'm going to go really hard into this. I'm going to ask the mother to remove every childhood trauma from every cell of my body. And that included my father, who was a very angry man and was a great shadow in my life. And I suspect now that that moaning in the hut was him. He didn't want to leave. And I said, look, it's over. You need to be dead and move on to your whatever life you're going to, and I need to sort of grow up and move on with my life. Now, I felt it was fantastic. I just gotten this new heart. I felt like I'd come home, and I was looking forward to ceremony 3. But in life, you better be careful what you wish for. I took the ayahuasca, a simple shot, and literally 15 minutes in, I started rocking back and forth. Back, but violently. It wasn't just a little rock, it was, I could feel the spirits pushing me back and forth. And I don't know how long it went on for. It felt like an eternity. It must have been at least 20 minutes. And I just thought, my God, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden, it pins my head on the floor. Now, the shamans say that there are 50,000 plant spirits in that room, that they are doing surgery. So I don't know how many were on my back, but there were a lot of them. Pins me on the floor, my hands are behind my back, and I'm waiting, and I'm just saying, I'm just surrendering, I know that whatever she's doing is in my best interest and for my benefit, and my knees were now beginning to hurt. And all of a sudden, she pulls my head up, or whoever it is, pulls my head up, pushes me back, opens my legs out, and I have somebody, I don't know who it is, pushing my head onto my right side of my cheek, and they are coming up through my system, they are in my ovaries, and they are doing work. And then I knew something really terrifying or something bad was going to happen, because all the Shipibo Indians, there are 5 of them, they all came towards me and were singing at this incredible high pitch. And out of the blue, this energy just moves up through my system and up, and this roar comes out, which was like some kind of primal scream. It was just roar. It's like relieving yourself of 56 years of not being who you're supposed to be. At the same time, I had this very powerful vision, and it was of me being one of them, like I'd been lost for all this time in some other place, like I'd been 3 million identities and I wasn't. And I'd come home, and they were helping me come home. And the maestro, who was so unbelievable, sat there and held my hand and just said, just hold on. And as this whole thing was going on, it lasted again for what seemed an eternity. And then at the end of it, the spirits lifted me up, and I sat up, and literally it lullabied me back and forth as if I had just been born again. It was an exorcism. I mean, I can only describe it as an exorcism. A powerful, unbelievable exorcism. Yeah, I don't know really what to say. It was just so unbelievable. The next day, in this integration process, they basically said, well, let's start with Maria. Because, yeah, having had that amazing exorcism, the person who's in charge, Matthew, said, oh, Maria, don't worry. You know, you're going to have a carpet ride tomorrow. That was so unbelievable what happened. And, you know, we've never seen this before. And don't worry, tomorrow is going to be a carpet ride. So I assumed, okay, that was absolutely terrifying and amazing. And I spoke to some people at from the group, and I said, well, what did you ask for? And people said, well, you know, I kind of asked for I've got a list of questions that I ask, and it kind of gives me downloads. But it was all very rudimentary, very kind of practical questions. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do ceremony 4 as a sort of just a list of things I need to sort of know about. I had to ask the mother, like, you know, like, how's my business going to go, and what about my relationships, and by the way, if there's anything left to heal, just, you know, just clear it up. So I go in to get my 1 shot of ayahuasca. I come back, and I figure this is going to be a great evening. Yesterday was unbelievable. She's going to be nice to me tonight, just going to take care of me and give me some information that I don't have. So I sat down, and then 30 minutes in, again, she starts rocking me back and forth. And again, she pins me to the ground, and when I'm on the ground and she's pinning me and I can't move, I just feel all these spirits just moving my muscles in my back, just moving and moving. They're just moving my muscles in my back. And she pulls me up after about 15, 20 minutes. I puke into this bucket, and again, she pulls me back down. And as I'm lying there, again, I can see all the Indians coming over because they know something else is going to happen, and I get the same thing that happened the night before, which is incredible energy coming up through my system, and this just raw, this kind of primal raw that comes from, like, you know, millions of years of all the stuff that hasn't been said or hasn't been felt. But it didn't feel as bad as ceremony 3. It was certainly a lighter version, although I knew it was coming in a way. It wasn't as bad, but still, it wasn't the carpet ride that they told me was going to happen. Again, I felt very safe. I felt incredibly loved, and I felt like I was at home, like I'd come home. It's just incredible. So that was ceremony 4. So ceremony 5 was very, very beautiful. I didn't puke. I just sat there, and she was incredibly loving the whole night. When these Shipibo Indians come and sing in front of you, it was just this incredible, again, you're so locked into this very ancestral kind of singing and chanting that you're kind of at one with everything. It was just this incredible peace and this incredible sense of being loved by something that was much greater than anything that one can ever imagine. It was like being in a very calm lake and feeling just like at the center of the universe. It was so beautiful. The last dinner, we all had dinner together, our last night, and I thought, well, you know what? I hadn't slept in my hut since the first time that I had that moaning spirit. I think the spirit's gone, or the ghost is gone. So I went back to the hut after a great dinner and just this incredible camaraderie, all these people. It was just unbelievable. Feeling just incredibly connected to everybody. And I went to go to bed, get under the mosquito netting, and I had my flashlight. Now, there is no electricity, so everything is basically lamplight, right? And it's a jungle, and it's the noise of the animals, and it's just phenomenally rich. But there's no electricity. So I went to go to bed, I put my flashlight on the bed, and this energy, which is the same spirit that was there the first night, took my flashlight and threw it on the floor in like an act of total defiance. I'm like, I'm not sleeping here. So I'm running after these people going, Jamie, Jamie. And I said, okay, we're doing a slumber party in the Maloka because I am not sleeping in that hut. So about 6 people ended up sleeping in the Maloka with me. We had a slumber party the last night. So I asked the maestro, I said, you know, the spirit, he said, Maria, he's eventually going to disappear. And so he's not been around since then. But let me tell you, I'm not ever sleeping in that hut again. Ayahuasca is not for everyone. You have to be ready to do it. When the student is ready, the teacher will show up. It is the most powerful point on the journey. It's certainly been the most powerful point on my journey. it is the last stop. It will show you everything that you don't necessarily want to see. It will show you your shadow. It will give you what you need, but it's not something, it's not a drug. It's not something that takes you out of reality. It plants you squarely in reality. In fact, more real than you've ever wished reality to be. And it will show you, it basically magnifies what's inside your head. You're powerless, you're helpless, a lot of things could go wrong. You have to do it in a place that's safe, and the Temple of the Way of Light is unbelievable because it has both the ayahuasca and it has the processing, and you shouldn't go if you're not called. It's not something you just do as a recreational drug. It is not a drug, it is a medicine. But if you're ready, Temple of the Way of Light is the place to do it. I recommend it highly.